Hi, this is Joseph with Conscious Collective, and in this video I want to talk about a concept in Buddhist psychology that helps us understand our mind, the way that our mind works, and how our mind tends to generate suffering for us, and how by understanding this one process we can generate peace for ourselves instead of suffering. So many of us suffer because of the blind reactions that we have, these habitual ways that we've been conditioned to respond or react to the things that we experience. And this teaching in Buddhism, known as the four parts of the mind, helps us understand this process of our reactive patterns. And by understanding them, instead of blindly reacting, we can consciously respond. We can no longer be at the mercy of our blind reactions and our habit patterns, but can have the freedom to choose the way that we want to relate to our experience. So it's a really powerful tool. And I believe it was Viktor Frankl that is famous for this quote of saying, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and within that space is our power." So we have to recognize that that space is there in order for us to have this power to choose our response instead of just being at the mercy of our blind reactions. And this teaching of the four parts of the mind can be really helpful, and it's something that you can notice in yourself fairly easily if you just learn this teaching, this concept, and start to apply it, start to notice it within yourself. So these four parts of the mind are consciousness, perception, feeling, and reaction. So consciousness refers to whenever a sense organ of ours makes contact with a sense object. So for example, the sense organ of my eyes can make contact with the sense object of my hand. And as soon as there's contact between these two, there arises the consciousness of sight. Or in the example, another example, say the sense organ of my ears makes contact with some object of sound, then there is the consciousness of hearing. And as soon as there is the consciousness of something, then our perception recognizes what it is that we are aware of. So in this case, the consciousness of sight, my perception is recognizing that it's a hand that I'm looking at, I'm perceiving. And then based off that perception, we have a feeling. And in Buddhism, feelings are known as Vedana, and we have two ways of looking at this. So our primary feelings and our secondary feelings. Our primary feelings are that everything that we experience has a quality of being either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And from these primary feelings, all of our secondary emotions arise. So like if I have a pleasant feeling, then from there, happiness, joy, peace, excitement can arise. If I have an unpleasant feeling, from there, anger, irritation, sadness, grief can arise. From a neutral feeling, typically we don't pay much attention to neutral feelings, and so ignorance or confusion can be something that arises from that. So based on the feeling that we have, we then react accordingly. If something is pleasant, we tend to react in a way that we want to hold on to that pleasurable experience, to hang on to it, cling to it, and keep it. If something is unpleasant, we tend to react in a way that we want to push it away. We want to avoid it, escape it, or get away from it. And this process is happening all the time in our body and mind, and it can happen really fast. It's just this very quick process of these four parts of the mind. So there's the consciousness of something, the perception that recognizes what that thing is, the feeling that arises then that this thing is either pleasant or unpleasant, and the reaction that then occurs from that. So if it's pleasant, we want to keep it, hold on to it. If it's unpleasant, we want to push it away, get away from it. And what the Buddha recommends us to do is, instead of just being at the mercy of this process and being a victim of these blind reactions, is to first just recognize them, to be aware of this process, and to observe that our mind is reactive, and it is always reacting in these two ways of sort of a pull or push. We either want to hang on to pleasure or push away pain. In Sanskrit, this force is known as raga and dvesha, or commonly called attachment and aversion, and it's considered to be the root cause of our suffering. Or really, ignorance is at the root cause of our suffering, a lack of awareness. And from that lack of awareness, we then have these blind reactions of attachment and aversion. And so instead of suffering and being at the mercy of these blind reactions, we can learn how to just observe this process occurring within us and how to relax with the sensations that we feel instead of blindly reacting to them. So if we feel pleasure, we can just relax with it. We can appreciate that this moment is pleasurable, it's enjoyable, but we don't have to cling on to it and hold on to it because we can't. Everything is always changing. There's nothing that we can actually cling to and hold on to forever. And that's one of the core teachings in Buddhism, is to let go of those attachments. Not that you have to let go of attachments in the sense of like getting rid of any social bonds that you have or any of your obligations in the world and that you have to go be a monk, but to just let go of clinging to things that are constantly changing. And in doing so, to just accept change and to allow things to come and allow them to go. So in this case, instead of just clinging and holding on to pleasure, we learn how to relax with pleasure and just appreciate it while it's there and let it go when it goes. And in the case of pain or something unpleasant, instead of just trying to force it, push it away, which makes us feel even more misery, more uncomfortable, we can practice relaxing with that uncomfortable sensation and also know that it's going to pass, know that it's going to change, as everything does. And so one of the core principles in Buddhism and Buddhist psychology is to relax with impermanence, to relax with what is, to just accept that the way things are, to accept that things are always changing, and not to try to see things outside of us as the source of our happiness or our misery. And when we're at the mercy of these blind reactions, that's sort of the way that we tend to view the world. That's the way that we tend to respond, is that whenever something's pleasurable, that's the thing that'll make me happy. When something's unpleasant, this thing's making me suffer and making me feel unhappy. But the truth is that those feelings are arising within us. Happiness and misery are subjective. They're a result of our perception, our attitude, and the way that we're relating to our experience. And as soon as we realize that, as soon as we recognize that happiness is really something within ourselves, something that arises within us and is not dependent on external circumstances, then we can have a source of happiness that's really stable and something that we can generate at any moment. We can just be happy. And we don't have to depend on our experience for making us happy. We don't have to cling to every pleasure, and we don't have to push away every pain, but we can peacefully, lovingly, and joyfully relax with the sensations that we experience. So I wanted to share this concept and this teaching because I think it's really helpful. It's a really practical way to understand how our mind works and this process of blind reactions that are happening all the time. So for today, I invite you to try to notice this process in yourself. Notice how quickly it happens too. We have the consciousness of something, the recognition, the perception of what that thing is, a feeling of it as either being pleasant or unpleasant, and then the reaction that happens from that. And so in that space right here between the feeling and the reaction is where we can observe and choose to relax with what we're experiencing and respond in a conscious way, an intentional way, instead of just blindly reacting by trying to either cling to or push away what we are experiencing. So I hope that you can comprehend what I'm sharing here and resonate with it and see it within yourself, because it's a really powerful tool. And I hope that you can practice this in your daily life and start to relax with sensations instead of immediately reacting to them and being controlled by factors outside of you. Because you don't have to let external things determine your peace or your misery. You can generate that from within yourself, and you can have a peace that exists beyond the changing circumstances of life. And that's what I want you to experience. That's the intention behind this video. So thank you for taking the time to watch this. I hope that it benefits you. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, help this channel grow. So thank you, and hope you have a beautiful, peaceful day. Much love.